Okay. Looks like we are now being live streamed. I'd like to just stand by. And good afternoon and welcome. My name is John McFadden from the Hunters Hill Council. I'd like to welcome everybody to the local planning panel this Thursday, the 31st of March 2022, in consideration of three matters today, those being 28 Huntleys Point Road, Huntleys Point, Verret Street Reserve in Verret Street, Hunters Hill, and 3 Mount Morris Street, Woolwich. This meeting is being live streamed, and we have with us today members of the panel, Mr. David Logan, Virginia Wise, Leslie Finn, and Ron Edgar. We're also joined by council staff, Sarah Jenkins, Sharon Medigadzin, and Philippa Hayes will also join us later. But we have here the chair of the panel, Leslie Finn, if I can hand over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Yes, my name is Leslie Finn, and I am the chair of today's panel appointed by the state government. With me, I'm a lawyer, probably the least person with the least expertise, really, because with me are some highly experienced experts in heritage and planning, being David Logan and Ron Edgar. And as well, we have a very experienced representative from the local community, being Virginia Wise. First procedural matter this afternoon is to move the confirmation of the minutes of the meeting of this panel on the 24th of February 2022. And I assume as I move that I will be seconded by Ron. You were at that meeting.
Yeah, because I was at the meeting.
And I can advise that the minutes of that meeting have been adopted. The first matter before the panel today is an application for alterations and additions to an existing dwelling at 28 Huntleys Point Road, Huntleys Point. The matter is before the panel because a clause 4.66 submission has been put to council for dealing with the landscaped area on the site. There have been no submissions received in respect of that application from the community, and no person has been registered to speak before this panel today. In the circumstances, I can advise that the outcome of today's meeting will be available on the council's website in due course. Therefore, move on to item 2, which is telecommunication works by Optus, being the installation of a cable and pit on the Verret Street Reserve, which is owned by council. There have been no submissions received from members of the public, but Mr. Jeff Thiel and David Carey are available to answer any questions that the panel might have. I understand that Virginia Wise and perhaps David Logan may have some questions. So if Greg and David are available, then those questions can be put to them.
Madam Chair, I believe that item will be discussed from 3 o'clock. So the item I understand that we will be running through now is 28 Huntleys Point Road, Huntleys Point.
Right. So we should move on then to item 3 and come back, do you think?
Happy to. Item 3, I understand, is number 3, Mount Morris Street, Woolwich.
It is.
Which is due to commence at 3:30 p.m. So there's it's been staggered out here. I think perhaps in fairness to the applicant for Verret Street Reserve, if they're coming on board at 3 o'clock, perhaps we should consider 28 Huntleys Point Road, Huntleys Point first
Yes,
up.
are they owners here present? Because I understand they're available for questions from the panel. Oh, anyway, if we move on to item 3,
No.
It's alterations and additions to a dwelling at 3 Mount Morris Street, Woolwich. There was a resident who made a submission, but my understanding is that that submission has been withdrawn. subsequent to some amendment to the plans. The matter is before the panel because there are two clause 4.6 applications for variation to height and landscaped area on the site. It's also my understanding that the architect and the owner are available to answer questions from the panel. I'm wondering if they are in the room at present.
Sarah, can we please
No, so
an update?
the 28 Huntley's Point Road, no one RSVP to attend today's meeting, so you can proceed with that one without any attendance, and then the other two will be coming at 3 o'clock and then 3:30.
So that means we can advise that the panel's decision in relation to the application at 3 Mount Morris Street, Woolwich, will be available on the council's website in due course.
Let's just take a step back here. So, Madam Chair, if I may.
If those people don't wish to be heard.
Yeah, that's fit to speak to 28 Huntley's Point Road. Huntley's Point. Sarah, if I understand correctly, there are no representatives for that application.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
However, as I understand it, Madam Chair, for Verrett Street Reserve and also for number 3 Mount Morris Street, Woolwich, there will be some representatives available. Could I perhaps suggest, given that it looks like we will run through these items fairly quickly, Sarah, you may wish to contact the representatives for Verrett Street Reserve and 3 Mount Morris Street to see if they wish to come online.
I thought I'd heard Sarah say that she'd heard that the people who wanted to speak in respect of the Mount Morris Street matter no longer wish to be heard, but that's not
no. So no, they're still intending to attend at 3:30.
However, I know from the architect, Mark Armstrong, he's actually in Perth, and it's the owner, Tracy Dixon, who's coming with another architect from the office, and they're just there to answer questions. They don't want to say anything. They only will speak if they have to, basically.
Do any members of the panel have any questions of Tracy Dixon or Louise on behalf of the architect?
Not really.
Having read the material, Virginia, would you have any questions of those?
No, most of my questions were actually then also covered was in regards to the retaining wall finish. And there was one question I actually had the continuum of us as a panel was to do with the 1.5 metre setbacks on the balconies, but I wasn't sure at what point to discuss that.
Well, when they turn up, I suppose. So when they come into the room, as it were. So I guess we've reached a stalemate now.
I do have a question on 28 Huntley's Point Road.
There's nobody turning up for that.
Well, maybe it's even just for the discussion in the panel.
Yeah, I think so. At the end
what we might do, Madam Chair, if I could suggest, Sharam, could you maybe just run through 28 Huntley's Point Road in terms of what's proposed there, just briefly, thank you.
Well, as long as we're not going live.
It's basically alternates to the existing dwelling with a clause 4.6 for relation to the landscaped area. Height's not changing. It stays as is. Height's not compliant, but there's no additions at all. It's just basically it's a betterment and alternates to the existing dwelling. So that's basically it.
As I read it, they've recovered floor space from opening up internal spaces that are already enclosed.
Yeah.
And they've gained landscaping space. They've reduced the pool size by the looks of it. And yeah, my only question, I guess, was in relation to the garbage bin storage, which sounds like a very odd thing. But to ask a question about is just that we're going to lose some landscaping and some green scope to that, and I just wondered if that was set in stone. Having it there.
Jerome?
Well, I mean, in terms of what the landscaped area calculations, or
It's just that it's 1.8 metres high of metal work when we're taking out a garden bed to put it in, and I just wondered if it would help the street elevation to retain the garden bed.
I mean, we can condition it to take it out.
I don't know how others feel, but
in
it's quite
terms of streetscape, we can do that. But I mean, in terms of function, I can understand why they put it there.
I understand in terms of function as well. I mean, they could pull it back closer to the back door. It was just for streetscape because there's not a lot of street trees along Huntley's Point Road. It's like other parts of 1960s subdivisions of Hunters Hill. There's no street trees, so they're reliant on the residents providing the greenscape.
Yes.
It's a bit of a moot point, really, because if you tell them to move it, it's how do you police? It's not something that's...
Well, there's an existing garden bed there that they were demolishing to put it there, and I just thought, do they just leave the bed there? That's my only thought, just to soften that elevation.
Yeah.
Anyone got a thought?
So what are you proposing to do? Approve it subject to an amendment? I assume we are not live, by the way, while we're having this discussion.
Yeah, this is live. This is live.
Well, I think it's a matter for when the meeting's over and we deal with it.
All right. So the observation with respect to 28 Huntley's Point Road, Huntley's Point, is that there is a clause 4.6 request lodged with respect to landscaped area. I note that the proposal has a landscaped area of 28%, which doesn't comply with the minimum 50% required as per clause 6.9 of the Hunters Hill Local Environment Plan 2012. So the consideration for the panel is that the proposed alterations and additions will increase the landscaped area, so there is an overall improvement there, but nevertheless still a numerical non-compliance. So that's the consideration with respect to the current clause 4.6 request, which is tied into the garbage storage area. Yeah.
Did you want to stop the recording now so you can finish this?
I think so, because we're doing deliberations, which are not supposed to be public.
Yeah, let's stop the recording.
Particularly as there is nobody here from the applicant to deal with it. How long